to mention, I don't know if people have heard from Doug Ford today, but we are going to remain in a shutdown till June 2nd. So that affects a lot. We had all kinds of things planned for April, May, which were put on the back burner, and we'll see what will happen in June. There are a bunch of shoots scheduled. For example, we have a night shoot for June the 12th. Again, that'll all be dependent upon what the COVID rules are at that time. I will be updating our events and presenters. We do have a full slate till the end of the year. However, all photo shoots are tentative until we get the green light, but we're planning as if we do have some sort of a green light. Just bear with us. We're doing the best that we can. I'd like to introduce tonight's guest speaker, which is Ann Culp. She is a member of the Haldeman Photography Club. And based on her bio, she has been terrified of the dark and all things that are in the night until she discovered the Milky Way. Now you'll find her out in the field at 2 in the morning, looking to the night skies. She's taken the basics of the Milky Way photography and applied it to other areas of shooting at night. She's been working on this part of her photography for almost 8 years, but really stepped into it this past summer. I guess during the pandemic wasn't much.
Yeah.
So with that, I'll turn it over to you, Ann.
Thanks. I hope this goes well. It's the first time I've done a PowerPoint presentation, so I'm going to try sharing the screen. Okay.
All yours to share, Ann.
Okay, thank you. Can you see it?
I know, not yet.
All right, I hit share. So what did I do wrong?
Hang on a second.
It says you have disabled participant screen sharing.
Okay, try now, Ann. I've given you rights.
Have you? There we go. Okay. All right, so my goal tonight is to get you out into the field and try shooting the Milky Way with minimal expertise and equipment. Just getting out there and giving it a try will give you a taste for it. There's a lot of other areas of night sky photography, time lapse, star trails, different things but once you get the basics of the Milky Way, then you can sort of move on into some of those other areas. So tonight we're going to talk about what you can shoot in the night sky, what equipment is needed, some planning and safety tips, camera settings, camera must-knows, and then some creative ideas. We don't live in an area where we have pure dark skies. We don't have access to lakes and mountains and trees like if you're up in Algonquin. So I've taken the time and gone out and around and just added different techniques to what I do at night. So this particular picture that's on the screen, you'll see these little green flashes off to the side. Those are actually fireflies. So if you could actually do a whole field of fireflies, that would be really cool. So obviously we can shoot the moon. This is Milky Way. This is a panorama. It's the first one I've ever tried. I did this year. We'll get into more of that later. The other one is over the Port Maitland Pier, and I'll talk about that one a little later. Comets, we have different comets that appear, and they are easily identifiable because you're given the details of when they're going to be visible. So this was the Neowise comet from last summer. We had about a week where we had good skies and we could go out and look for it and locate it and shoot it. We have various meteor showers that run at different times all year. There's all kinds of calendars you can find online that will give you a list of any meteors that are coming up. The big one that everybody likes to follow is the Perseids, which is this year is July 17th to the 26th of August, and it peaks August 11th and 12th. Now this is something you're going to end up sitting out in the field at 2 in the morning. We usually do all-nighters when we go out to do these, but they're fun. Lightning, this is another technique. Once you've figured out how to shoot at night, you can give a whirl at shooting lightning. These are a couple that I did along the lake up here. This is something I just discovered this year. It's called zodiacal light. It's visible before sunrise and after sunset. It's a column of light that appears, and it's because of pollution that's in the atmosphere. And if you research it, it's visible in the mornings, I believe, in the fall, and in the evenings in the spring. But if you can double check that, it says right there, visible before sunrise and after sunset. So bear with me. This is my first attempt at doing a show like this. So air glow is a chemical reaction in the upper atmosphere. So this photo was taken up in Algonquin as an example. And I spent many hours trying to figure out why I had this green cast in my photo and I couldn't get rid of it. And some people mistake it for the northern lights or the aurora borealis, but it's not. It just tends to hover more along the horizon, and it's more of a solid color. You can't really see it with your eye, but it is visible through your camera when you do an extended photograph. This is aurora borealis. This is not my photo, but I just wanted to show you what you can do. Would love to see that. Okay, so moving on to gear and basics. When I get past this section, I'll stop and see if you have any questions. So first of all, you're going to need a camera with manual settings and an interchangeable lens of some sort, and a good tripod and a ball head. I'll explain the tape on my camera, on my lenses after too, and it's not because I broke them, which I do occasionally, but it's for another purpose. So for your equipment, full frame is preferred, but your crop sensors will work as well. High versus low pixel count, there's a trade-off. You get more resolution with one, but you get more noise actually with the higher pixel count cameras. Wide angle lenses work well. They're designed for astrophotography. I have a 14 to 24, where that's the one I just dropped actually. It's in getting fixed. And I just bought a new Sigma 14 millimeter lens, and I'm loving that. It's a 1.4 f-stop on it, so it's really good. A tripod, the sturdier the better, to avoid shaking and vibration. Little things like your camera strap blowing in the wind will affect your camera and how your photo comes out. That will cause vibration. So the sturdier your tripod, the better. A good ball head that will hold the weight of your camera. You don't want your camera head to drift down. So if your ball head isn't strong enough and the weight of your camera, you'll get sagging during your photo. Intervalometers are good for external, it's an external trigger for shooting star trails. Sorry, I got to move this thing. There we go. For shooting star trails and meteors. Mine has a built-in one, and so I tend not to use mine too much. A flashlight or a headlamp with a red light, that helps preserve your night vision, and it's also kind of a courtesy to people around you. If you're photographing with a group of people, you're tending not to obstruct their shoots as well. Okay. All right, so this is an example of the intervalometer with a screen on it. So you can set it to do a series of photos at a certain length of time with a certain interval. These are really good if you're doing star trails. It actually helps preserve the battery in your camera because you're running it off of the remote instead of through your camera. And the other one is just a regular wired remote. There's wireless ones as well, depending on the model of your camera. So this is something else that I have. It's a dew heater. And I actually bought it thinking we would use it more in the winter when it's cold, but I actually find I get more use out of it at this time of the year because of, well, all summer, because of the dew that falls. And the other thing on the right is a funny little cover that I've made out of just a hoodie from the dollar store, and I put a pocket in it that actually holds the battery pack, so it's all together. So, And another, I'll get into when I explain more about the equipment. One of the things I would suggest you take is a towel when you're shooting in this out in the at night in the dew, because your camera does get very wet. Okay, so other gear, your cell phone, obviously, with your different apps on it that will help you locate the Milky Way. Extra batteries for your camera and lights. Headlamps or flashlights. I use both. I find the headlamps are really good with a red light on them. I usually put it around my neck instead of on my head with the red light on it, because then it actually shines right on the camera instead of over it. And that seems to work really well for me. A hand towel, or as I said, I've got that weird little hoodie thing that I made, a chair to sit on. When you're doing meteor showers, you pretty much set your camera up and just let it run. Doing 20-second photos, and you just sit there and let it do it. So we take chairs and sit and enjoy and have a good visit. Bug spray, first aid kit, and garbage bags are another good idea because of the dew. We put one on the ground to put our camera bags on, and then we toss another one over it to protect everything from getting wet. Okay, and this is some more advanced equipment. This is something I've just bought. I've got it all set up. I have yet to take it outside. I've been waiting for a warm night. So this is a star tracker. And what you're going to do with this is you set it up and it's aligned with Polaris, and it's going to track the Milky Way. So I will be able to do up to a 3-minute exposure possibly. It's also useful for doing time lapse, star trails. It comes with a counterweight. You could add a big lens to it as well, and or a telescope, depending on what equipment you have and how experienced. But this is really high end. This is just some stuff I wanted to show you of where you can go eventually with this stuff. And then these are 2 other filters that I have. The one on the left, the black one, is called a Sharp Star 2. It's also known, I'm not sure if I'm saying this right, a Botanov mask. And what it does is it helps you focus in a very extremely dark environment on the stars. And the light pollution filter, because of where we live, there's a lot of, like I shoot a lot over Lake Erie, so we get a lot of lights from Buffalo, Erie, Pennsylvania, Ohio, and it all comes across the lake. So this helps filter the light so it isn't as obvious to you. So we're going to move on to planning and safety, but right now, does anybody have any questions about the equipment?
If you have a question, just unmute yourself and ask the question.
Nope.
And
Yes.
it's Margaret Packham. Did those filters go right on the camera, or are they separate somehow? They looked square.
Yeah, they are. They're separate. You have to buy the proper adapter that fits your particular lens. So the one that I have fits both my lenses, and that's a 150 millimeters square filter, but you can get all kinds of different sizes. So if you do move to that step, then you would just research what would be the proper filter and filter system for your particular camera.
Okay, thank you.
And also I was going to say too, like for starting out, you don't have to have a wide angle lens. When I first started doing night photography, I was using a crop sensor Nikon camera and my kit lens that came with the camera, 70 to 300. And I managed quite well. And if you just like, my goal here is to get you guys out into the night and experience the night and what it has to offer, and offer beyond the Milky Way. And you'll find there's so much you can do with all the different lenses you have in your bag. So don't feel like you have to run out and buy a wide angle lens to start with, because they're not, the wide angle lenses are not cheap. So okay, any other questions? Yes.
How much was this? Was it a Sky Watcher or Sky Tracker that you had your camera on?
Yes. It's the Skywatch
Really expensive.
Tracker Pro. Yeah, it was about $600.
Okay, all right.
But then
I just wanted to know if possibly get something used. Is it just mechanical?
Yeah. It actually runs, you use your phone and it hooks through your phone and your camera, And so you have to have a camera that's capable of working through your cell phone, like a Wi-Fi hookup,
Right. Okay. Interesting.
and then to the unit itself. So it is a more an advanced one, and there's all different levels of them. There's some, they're just coming out with some that are really a little more inexpensive, maybe a couple $100. So there's, you know, there's some good digital photography, the DPS. They do some good reviews on the different pieces of equipment. So you can find lots of information on it. And I'm more than happy to help anybody find anything that they might need if they're looking for something. So
Just one more question, Ann. I have a student who shoots the galaxies with a telescope.
yes,
Is that something that this can do?
yes, it will help.
can.
You can do that with that, but you have to have certain types of lenses. I'm going to attempt some of it with one of my big zoom lenses this summer. The problem is I have to go out in the yard and figure out how to hook it up and get it like, you have to line it up with Polaris. So that's how it tracks the Milky Way. So I haven't yet had a warm enough evening to go stand out in my backyard and play around with my cell phone and my camera and this thing. So I've just been waiting for that. So hopefully this weekend I might make it out there, but it is used a lot. Yes, there's a couple of websites that will help you with that. One of them I've got listed. I quite like their stuff. The Skywatcher themselves, they have lots of information on it. And there's a beginners Canadian astrophotography thing on Facebook, and they're quite good too for information. So
That's great. Thanks, Ann.
you're welcome. Okay, so we're going to move on to planning and safety. So this particular picture, which was I showed you earlier, was 3 years in the planning. First of all, I wasn't quite sure how to plan where the Milky Way was, and then I became aware of the different apps and things that are available. So this is over the mouth of the Grand River, looking across to the pier. And there's a little park that you, at the end of the road there out by the Inifos fertilizer factory, where you can go and shoot. But like you have to be out here in the summer at like 3:30 in the morning. And so you're either dealing with the weather, you're dealing with the moon, or you're dealing with weird people that are hanging out at the park at 3:30 in the morning. And I will not get out of my car. If I'm out there by myself and the hair on the back of my neck stands up, I leave. So it took me 3 years. It was a Wednesday night last summer that I finally went out and got this photo. And you know, you can see the planning that goes into it. So this is where you go and you scope it out during the day, which is what I'm going to tell you to do next. You check your weather forecast, the cloud covers. You check the position of your Milky Way and when the core is visible. And I'm going to show you my favorite app for that when we get down a little further. You can check for moon phases. Just Google moon phases on the internet, and there's 100 calendars that'll give you the moon phases for the entire year. And I think there's an eclipse coming up May 26th that I don't know if we'll see the whole thing here, but it may be visible here. You want to watch, there's phases of twilight. So the sun sets and then that's twilight. And then there's dark, and then there's what they call actual dark. And what you really want to do to be shooting the Milky Way to get the core is shoot at actual dark. So everybody, this is the core here. This is what everybody wants to get in your photo. And this is a horse. It has a name. I can't remember what it is, but this is what you want to try and get in your photos. So during the winter months, this galaxy, the core, is below our horizon. You can still get Milky Way shots of the upper part of the Milky Way, but you're not going to get the core. So we're just starting to get it now. And that's why I've been out at 5:30 in the morning shooting the galaxy, because that's when it's visible. And go with a friend if you can. Taryn, she's not here tonight, but her and I, for COVID last year, this was our lifesaver. We would drive separately, meet somewhere. You can stand 15, 20 feet apart. You can talk, you can do your shooting. It was great. We had a blast and we learned a lot from each other. So, you know, go with somebody that's got a mutual interest. Like I wouldn't take my husband because he'd be sitting in the car saying, are we done yet? So any questions about planning and safety? We'll get on to software or programs and stuff in a minute. So Why is that not working? Okay. All right, so these are some of the apps that we're going to talk about. PhotoPills is probably my favorite right now. I've got a couple screenshots I'm going to show you. I have the photographer's ephemeris, but I just find it's really complicated, and I just couldn't wrap my head around it to get into it. So I found the PhotoPills much easier to use. And what I like about the PhotoPills is once you sign up for it, they send you these emails and they have a whole series of videos that's all about how to use their software, how to shoot the Milky Way. Like they give you all these tips, and the guy's a little funny guy from like Gibraltar, and he's got an accent, but he's hilarious and he does really good little videos. So my other next favorite one is Star Walk 2. These are all, I have an iPhone, so these are all iPhone apps that I have, and I'm sure there's comparable ones for other phones. I just don't know what they are. Star Walk 2 is really good. It's just one you can take out of your pocket and hold it up, and it'll show you right where the Milky Way is, like from your car. You don't even have to get out of your car. And it also has a feature where you can advance it with the time, and you can see the Milky Way moving across the sky. So that's how you can find out where, if you want to shoot it at a particular time. But the PhotoPills does all that, and it does it very well. And I'll show you on the next slide what I'm talking about. So Astropheric is the one I use for cloud cover. So Tuesday night we were going to go out, and the weather forecast said it was perfectly clear, but Astropheric said it was cloudy. And Mary Jane, who's here listening to the meeting tonight, she lives by the lake. So she went out and did a visual, and the Astropheric was right on for the cloud cover, where the weather forecast was off. It was saying it was perfectly clear, and it wasn't. So there's another one called Clear Skies, and I like Astropheric better. But there's the Weather Network, or what other weather channel you want to use. Another one called Dark Sky Map, and that's great because it'll show you anywhere all over the world where the dark sky zones are. The problem is they're getting smaller and smaller. It's harder and harder to find a really dark spot. So you can see in this picture here that we're dealing with, this is across the lake. This is Morgan's Point Conservation Park. So we're dealing across the lake to Erie. So those red lights are actually the wind towers and solar, or the wind turbines on the other side of the lake. And then that's the light pollution is the yellow. I didn't have my filter last year when I did this, but this picture here also shows you how these are just little tide pools in the rock face of the beach, but look at the star reflections. So I get down really low with my tripod and take advantage of the reflections in the water. So, and these are things you would be doing up north if you had a nice calm lake. But instead, you know, you can find stuff like that here if you take the time to know your site and know what's there, and figure out how to take advantage of the reflections and the water and little shrubs and trees. It just, you know, there's all kinds of things you can make your foreground for your picture. It doesn't have to be, you have to have something in it. I love to have like an anchor. So you see the Milky Way is coming down to that little tree. So it's kind of anchored into that. So it just kind of draws your eyes in and then up to the Milky Way. And again, we've got some cloud cover, and I'm going to show you some pictures in a bit. I'm a huge fan of clouds. I love clouds at night and with the moon. It's fantastic. So there's a bazillion websites. One of my favorite ones is lonelyspec.com. And again, this is another site that has some really good entry-level videos of instructions on a particular aspect of photography for night if you want it. So there's lots of information out there. And again, as I said, I'm always available. Just message me. I'm more than happy to share anything I know. It's such a passion for me. I want to get everybody out there doing it. So this is the PhotoPills. This is the one screen. Obviously, this isn't interactive. So it has a planner. You can go in and you drop your pin on your spot, and you can save. Sorry, we went ahead. Go back. Okay. So the planner lets you drop your pin. You can save your spots that you go to all the time, so you don't have to keep putting them in. It shows you where the sun is, the moon is, It tells you what time they're going to rise, what time they're going to set. It's going to show you the position of the sun and the moon and where they're going to cross whatever particular feature it is that you want to shoot. I haven't explored too much the exposure, depth of field stuff. If you click on the meteor showers, it gives you a list of all the meteor showers for the year, and you just click on it and it actually inserts them into your, the next slide. It'll insert it into it and show you where they're coming from, because most meteor showers have a radiant that they come from out of the sky. So it'll show you that. And it moves along as you go through the time of the night. It'll move, the map moves and the meteors move and the galaxy, like the Milky Way thing moves. It's really cool. And I haven't checked the rest of this out yet with the timers and the other stuff, but this is one of my favorites so far. So this is it in action. So this is the night that we're supposed to be going to do our workshop. You can plan ahead. You can go, like if you're going to travel, you can use this. You can plan ahead. You can figure out where you want to go. So we're thinking of going to Binbrook, Tyneside Trail. So this dotted line here is the Milky Way. The big dot is the core. So if you look over here, it's going to tell us that the core is visible from 11:17 until 3:30 in the morning. And it's spot on for what it does. So, and again, like the closer we get to summer, into the summer and further into the fall, the earlier this will be. But the problem is you still have to wait till it gets dark. So you're fighting the Milky Way's up, but we're still not into actual dark. So it tells you the blue hour, which is sunset, and then golden hour, which is your morning. So if you want to go out and shoot that nice light, it'll tell you here. Here's your civil, nautical, and astronomical twilights. It's telling you right here what they are. Tells you what time the sun comes up, the moon comes up, when it sets. Haven't quite figured out all the technical terms around this. It has to do with where it is on the horizon, and I don't necessarily need to know that for where we are. I'm not planning that kind of technical. This here, you can slide it across with a time, and as you slide it, these all move in conjunction with it. So it's just a really, really cool thing to work with. And then this is the astropheric. So this is this current tonight and tomorrow. So last night was pretty good. And so you see tonight, it's supposed to be clear tonight. Like tonight would be a great night to go out. And you want to go out when there's no moon if you can. So you want to pay attention to the moon phases. So we're clear from midnight right through tomorrow and into early Saturday. But again, for timing, it's probably, we've been going out, if it says 12:30, we'll go an hour later just because we want it to be really dark. And then it gets a little higher on the horizon. So you got temperatures, it throws in the temperatures for you and wind speeds, and yeah, it's really cool. And then this down here, when you click on these colors, squares, it tells you the percentage of cloud cover. So this is our Binbrook as well here, so. Okay, any questions on any of those apps or the things I've just shown you? Okay. All right, so now we're going to talk camera settings. So you need to be able to work your camera in manual mode. We're going to be dealing with shutter speeds, so you need to know how to adjust that, 10 to 25 seconds. Your aperture, you're going to want it as wide as possible. ISO will be 1600 and up, depending on your lens. If you're using a lens that only has, like my Astro lenses, my 14-24 is a 2.8 lens, and my 14 millimeter is a 1.4 lens. I can shoot a 600 ISO with those and get a good picture. But if you got a f5.6 lens, you're going to have to bump your ISO way up to get the light in for your picture. And then you're going to deal with noise. So when you decide how serious you're going to be about photography, astrophotography, that's when you're going to decide whether or not you want to invest in a better lens. And it does make a difference, but you can do it with any lens, and that's what I want to impress upon you. That's why I'm hoping we can do the workshop, because I want to be able to come out and help you work with it. Obviously, the lenses that don't have the super wide apertures, you're going to get a little more noise out of those lenses. We're going to talk about focusing a lot. That's the main thing, the biggest issue you're going to have out in the field. Like all these things, you know, because you do other stuff with it. Focusing in the dark is another creature unto its own. You can play with your white balance. It can be adjusted in post-processing if you like. So this is a moon that I took, and this is just in Lightroom, and all I did was move the color slider on the white balance, and I got all these different color moons out of it. So for shutter speed, we all know that the Earth rotates, so the stars appear to move. And the problem that arises is we create small star trails. So, you know, when you've seen the circular star trails, well, you get little movement in your stars, and we don't want that. So each lens has its own limits to avoid these star trails. So we need to apply the rule, the 500 rule formulas to your cameras and your lenses to figure out what the rule of 500 is for that lens. So for full frame lens, it's 500 divided by the focal length equals the maximum time in seconds. For crop sensor, it's 500 divided by the focal length times the crop factor. So on my 14 millimeter lens, I could do up to a 35-second photo, and I shouldn't get star trail. I probably would, so I would probably not shoot that long. And that's one of the reasons I bought the star tracker, is because I want to be able to do longer photos. So love that math. I hate the math. So are your eyes glazed over yet? Do you want to do math? I don't. So you go online anywhere and you can find all these different charts for all the different lenses that gives you 14 millimeter full frame camera, 36 seconds I could do, or 24 seconds for 1.5 crop sensor, and so on and so on. And it will do, you can find this for any brand of lens and your cameras. So don't worry about the math formula, drive yourself crazy. So we can do this easily without getting into math. I hate math.
So the previous slide again, sorry.
Go ahead. Yeah, okay.
Just for 1 second.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, what, you're writing it down?
Yes.
Okay.
I just had one more word, so I thought,
Oh, that's
let me
okay.
just get.
I'm going to do a PDF and throw it into the, I forgot to do it. I'll get one done in the next week and throw it into the camera club, and you'll be able to grab it and get this information. So tell me when you're ready.
Oh, I'm good.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. But this is really an easy way to do it. So you don't need to stress it out. I'll tell you a story. I don't know. Is Paul here tonight? No. So I was taking Paul's course at Mohawk, and it was a weekend course on astrophotography. And we spent the first half of the first day doing all this math stuff. I didn't go back the second day. I was so freaked out by it. I'm like, I don't want to do this. I just want to go out and shoot. So now with the wonderfulness of the internet, we can find all this stuff online, and we don't have to do math. So I guess if you're really, really serious about it, you know, some people, I won't say guys, have a better head for math than I do. It's really funny because my husband's an accountant. I work in the office and I hate math. So anyway, so I just wanted to show you this for your aperture. We want to let in as much light as we can. So when, this is just a chart I stole off the internet. As you up your aperture to the f22, you're going to get like starbursts, because the light is not as just full coming at you. I don't know how to explain it, and then when you get to f2.8, it's softer and it's letting more light in for the glow. So I have some photos too where you can see how this is something you can play with at night as well, is getting really sharp lights, like when you're doing city lights and stuff, you can see them behind here on these pictures. So, and then for your ISO, you want it to be as high as you need it to achieve the results, so you can actually see your picture. So it's a bit of trial and error based on settings, and it's going to change depending on where you are, what the ambient light is, whether you've got light pollution. You know, if you're in a really dark area, you're going to have to crank up that ISO. Even for me with my low f-stop cameras, lenses, they're going to have to still crank it up for the dark. Any questions on any of this? Okay. So I'm going to move on to focusing, because this is your biggest challenge. So you're going to turn autofocus off on both the camera and the lens. We're going to take the focus ring and we're going to put it to infinity. Now, this is not, just because it says it's infinity doesn't mean every camera has like a sweet spot. So you may have to move it left or right. You're gonna have to play with it a bit to figure out what your sweet spot is. So we're gonna turn on live view, and you're gonna zoom in to another light in the distance or a star. Sometimes, like when I'm out at the lake, there's people's houses, you know, along the shore. Sometimes you can use one of those lights because they're really bright and they're easy to see. Otherwise, if you're out in the dark and you don't, then you're going to have to find a really bright star in the sky and zoom in on it. And you're going to use your focus ring to bring that star to a sharp point. So your star will be the smallest it can possibly be when you're looking at it on your screen, and that will mean that it's in focus. So I'll just show you quickly. I've got a screen here. So I just did these quick last night. So this is out of focus. So you don't want any bokeh. That's, you know, everything's soft. This is the same lens, just 2 seconds later, where I've pinpointed in, and you can see everything's much sharper. So once you've got it where you think it is, and you're going to do some test shots out there just to make sure it's what you want before you set it. And then we apply tape to the rings. You saw my lenses with the tape on it. I never take the tape off of my lenses once they're set, because that's all I use them for. So once I have them focused, I just leave the tape on. So then I use gaffer's tape, because it's an industry tape for video and photography, and it doesn't leave glue residue on your lenses. It's expensive, but you can buy a great big roll of it, and I just take lengths of it and wrap it around an old credit card and just throw it in my camera bag. And then I've always got some with me. And I also broke a fingernail one night when I was out and I didn't have a first aid kit, and it solved that problem too. So we're going to, and the other thing you could do is, when I first started doing this, I would pre-focus to infinity. I'd go out to the end of my driveway and look down the street and focus on the neighbor's house as far away as I could. And that's pretty darn close to where we want it to be. And then you do your test shots and make sure everything's pin sharp and what you want before you start proceeding. And to do this, before you start this, you're going to want to try and get your aperture, ISO, and time pretty much where you want it, just so it'll help you sharpen everything. So, okay, apply the tape. So there we are again with the focused and not in focused. So a couple of other things you're going to need to worry about. You're using your camera on a tripod. If your lens has vibration reduction, you want to turn that off. You want to shoot in RAW if you can. When I first started it, excuse me. When I first started, I was doing JPEG, but I've since then obviously switched over to RAW. It just gives you more data for post-processing. High ISO noise reduction should be turned off. Long exposure noise reduction should be turned off. White balance can be adjusted in post, but I like to set mine in my camera to Kelvin, and it just gives a truer color rendering of the sky. So it would be about 4,400 Kelvin earlier in the evening when it's lighter, And as it gets darker, you're going to adjust it down to 3200 or 3600. So any questions so far? Okay. All right, so there's a few things you need to know. If you're going to shoot out at night, you really got to learn how to use your camera just by feel, because you can't keep turning the lights on and off, on and off. I work my camera. I just, I have a thing that I just, 1, 2, 3, that's this, and you learn where everything is. So you need to know how to use live view. Whoops. How to use live view and how to zoom the image on that live view screen up. You need to know how to use your virtual horizon on Nikon, or I think it's called a spirit level on Canon. When we do the workshop, Taryn's a Canon girl, I'm a Nikon. So we can kind of help with that. And if there's anybody else that's kind of like maybe Tony who does, you got your Sony, I think, Tony. So you might know how to use, some of those features on some of the other cameras. Learn to use your camera by feel. Learn how to turn your image playback off, just because it's an extra battery drainer at night. You can still flick the button and look at it if you want. And especially when you get into doing meteors, you don't want that light flashing on and off throughout the night. Whoops. So this is just a quick chart I threw up of your histogram. And that's another thing you got to know how to read is your histogram. So you're not going to get a perfect histogram at night. It's going to be more to the left, to the dark side. You want to try and not have it bunched right over. But if you're shooting raw, a lot of this is easily fixable in Lightroom or Photoshop. You don't want it all the way over to here, to the right. Okay, I'm not going to talk a lot about Photoshop and I use Lightroom mostly. I do a little bit in Photoshop, and I like to use Topaz for some things as well. So in Lightroom, you can adjust the temperature, or you can adjust your white balance. I can move my exposure slightly. I play with the shadows. I play with the highlights. I play with the blacks. I bring the whites down, or whatever I have to do. Contrast. Clarity really and dehaze really work well at popping the stars out, but you only want to use a little bit of clarity. It can get a little, sometimes you'll get a white fringe along a tree line at night and you think, oh, that's just light pollution, but it's actually can be your clarity slider if you put too much clarity onto it. So dehaze does a great job. I might use the vibrance up just a tad, and the saturation I don't play with too much. I'm starting to use the brushes and the graduated filters, and I'll take a brush and use the highlights and lighten, and I'll just lightly go over the areas that I know should be white in the Milky Way, just to kind of help them pop a bit. But it's a learning curve. I'm just really, like I said, the last year I've really upped my game on my editing and learning some different things to do with it. I'm not a big Photoshop. I have to learn how to do it, because if I'm going to use this, my tracker, one of the things you can do is stacking photos, like taking different exposures and then stacking them, and Photoshop would be great for that. So that's a technique I have to learn this year. So baby steps, everything's baby steps. Like I don't want to overwhelm you thinking you have to, it's all trial and error. And if you go out and you don't like it, it's digital, right? You just throw it away and you start over. So I'm just hoping that if we can get together, and I'm always available for questions. So, okay, so we're going to move on. Do we need a break, Tony? I don't even know what time it is.
It's about 10 to 8. Up to you.
No, I'm good to keep going if anybody else is good. Okay, so we're going to walk through some of my photos and explain what I've done. and some of the settings for them. So this was one I did last summer, and I wanted this, as I do them, I'm going to talk about how I achieved the effect of a foreground. So this is taken at the end of the Port Maitland Pier. And at the end of the pier, there's a pile of rocks. So I'm down in a hole looking up, and it looks like mountains with a lake behind it. So this is a photo. This was a single shot photo. I have the moon, the Milky Way. I had a meteor go through it, and the two planets here. So I did do a fair bit of photo editing on this just to bring out the highlights and stuff, because like the moon was blown out, the water was really blown out with highlights. So I used some graduated filters on this, and I used my brushes up in here. You can see I've just kind of lightly touched the brushes, and you can do the same thing with a clarity. You can go back or dehaze and just brush and just hit some of these spots and make them pop a bit. So this was one I really played. So some of them I consider them to be more of like a work of art as opposed to just a photograph. So it's kind of, you know, what do you want? And I actually, the ones that I do that are more of a work of art are some of the ones I have success selling. So this one was done with my 14 to 24, and it was a 22nd. I can go down to f2.8 with this, but I upped it to f4, and my ISO isn't super high. It's only 1200 because of the moon. So this is where you have to look at your histogram and look at your photo. And in a photo like this, I would be using the highlights where the blink, I call them the blinkies, on the back of your camera. When you scroll through on the review, and it'll flash. So if the highlights are blown, then I went back in and changed my settings a bit for exposure. So any questions on this one? Okay. So this is Tobermory Singing Sands. This was 2 years ago in September. It was an outing that was run by Paul and his friend through the club. We were very upset because this is supposed to be a dark sky preserve, and they now have these new buildings, and they actually have lights on them that they leave on all night. But in the end, it was those lights that lit these reeds that are in the front of my photo. And I was actually standing in the water with my tripod taking this picture. We had been here 3 nights, and the first 2 nights were a bust because we had haze and fog partway up the horizon, and we couldn't see here. So this was the end result. So in the end, this is where the lights actually benefited. So you can see, because we're in Tobermory and how dark it is, the sky, this was a 30-second exposure at 2.8, ISO 3600. So, and again, this one I punched up with a bit of HDR to make it more of a work of art. So this is Lake Erie shoreline. This was done late fall, so you can see we have the Milky Way, but we don't have our core. It's kind of disappearing. So, but this is where I love the clouds. So this is a 25-second exposure, and the trees look like they have little cotton puffs on them. But we were going to get this foreground here with the water and the trees. Oops. So this is out by Nanacoke. So it's pretty bright. There's lights all over the place, and you can see it was windy. The trees are even moving there. So this is the one again with the fireflies. So this was 25 seconds at 2.8. And again, this is we were down in along the shoreline, there was kind of a raised area with some scrubby grass and trees. Like these little bushes are only like 2 feet tall, and we're basically on our knees shooting up. And I don't think I did too much to this one other than my Lightroom adjustments. So this is where we're going for our workshop. So this was done with my 50mm lens. And in this particular case, you can see it's a bit fuzzy, but it's just, I didn't like this picture anyway, so I didn't bother spending any time refocusing. I didn't like the foreground. It just didn't appeal to me. So I switched my lens. I went to my wide angle, and this is what I got. So we got the reflections in the water. We got the Milky Way. We got the core. So it's 20 seconds at f2.8 ISO 1600. So beautiful, nice reeds in the front there. Some people, and I like to do a lot of silhouettes, but sometimes it's really nice to have the light, the foreground lit so you can see what the features are. Silhouettes are my favorite. So this is Morgan's Point Conservation Park. This is a dead tree that's there. I'm going to call it Anne's tree because I just love this tree. So we did the Milky Way here, and there's a few clouds, which was okay. And again, I used my light pollution filter here. So you can see that I don't have quite as much yellow along the shoreline. It's more white. That's what the filter does. So this was 20 seconds at 2.8. And when I put the filter on, I do have to up my time and my ISO a bit, but that's okay. It does what it's supposed to. So I went back again on a full moon night and did this. I love this tree. So there's the moon. And I stopped down my aperture to get the starburst. And another thing that happens when you get the heavy dew in the sky with the moon, you get these starbursts, and it'll do it around some of the planets too. And again, I'm down very low. I'm sitting on the ground here. I'm looking up through some weeds that are only 2-3 feet tall because I wanted the foreground. And silhouettes are just really, for me, are just my thing to do. So this was 15 seconds at f6.3 ISO 1200 because of the moon. So as soon as you get that moon, you got to shut down your ISO. Any questions so far? So here's some more silhouettes. Obviously this is summertime. This is a fence. There was nothing in there. It was just a field. I'm actually sitting in a ditch again. I do that a lot, looking up at the silhouette. And then this is when we went out to shoot the moon at night with some snow on the ground. And there's just, everywhere you look, there's stuff. And we've got leading lines in here that are really cool. They pull your eye in to the image. Oops. So this, clouds and light pollution, nature's light reflector. So this is a bank of clouds, and I know there's greenhouses over there where I was shooting. This is out in Wainfleet, and it lit up those clouds, which are now beautifully reflected in the water. I got a meteor coming through. We went here. This was a freezing cold winter night. Again, we don't have the core of the galaxy of the Milky Way, but we do have some of it. Just the time of the year, the core is below the horizon. So these ones here that I'm showing you, I don't have the time settings on them. I'm just showing you the different features that I look for when I go out. So again, I got silhouettes, the light reflected in the water. So this is Mohawk Lighthouse, or it's called Gull Island Lighthouse. So it's off of Rock Point up in Dunville. So we lit the grass, we light painted the grass. I wanted to photograph this lighthouse at night, but it's not a working lighthouse. It's actually a bird preserve, and we're not allowed to go there between April and September because of the birds that nest there, and you can't get out there. So we went out there to shoot the Milky Way, but we had clouds that were just radiating across the sky. And sometimes when you get the moisture in the clouds, you end up with this beautiful, soft, reflected light, and it just lit up the lighthouse so we could see it. And this is another thing that your wide angle lenses do. If you get into a wide angle lens for night photography, day or night, they're great for scenery, landscape. They do all these great cloud formations. It's just, yeah, they're just great. So this one here on the left, you can see I've got the parade of lights down the lighthouse, the pier, and I've got the starbursts in them. So I was shooting the Perseids meteor shower by myself, but I was looking the other way up the river into town. And the clouds started moving in, and I knew the moon was behind me, and I turned around and I looked and I went, oh my God, look at that. So I snapped this picture of the clouds. It's not a great, I have to figure out how to straighten trees, but anyway. And the one on the right is at Arrowhead Park. There's a tree up there that everybody goes to shoot, and we've gone to shoot the Milky Way. And we had all these clouds, but when you did the time exposure of 20 seconds, we ended up with these beautiful cotton ball striation of clouds. It was just gorgeous. So this is a panorama that I just did the other night. So this is my second one that I've ever done. So this is a 12-shot image, and I shot vertical with my camera. And what you want to do is you want to add one more photo to the left and the right of your image than what you actually think you're going to need. Because when you throw it into the program to do the merge, you'll lose something on the sides. So again, we took advantage of the clouds and the light reflection into the water. And there was this beautiful arch of clouds inside the Milky Way. And the other thing I did, because I knew it was dark to the right, because it was like farm country, and I knew we were going to be dealing with light pollution on the left side. So as I'm moving the camera across for about the last 5 shots, I changed my exposure to compensate a bit for how bright it was becoming at the left end of the photo. So then when I put it into Lightroom and merged it and then started doing my editing, it was easier to edit it because I didn't have these blown out highlights to the left to deal with. And this was my new 14 millimeter at 1.4. And you can see the difference, like how much light I get in the foreground when you get down into the the really wide open f-stops there. Like, it's just amazing. Whoops. So for the panoramas, what you do is my tripod has degrees on it. So you're going to do a series of shots and you're going to evenly rotate them. Like, these are so easy to do. Once you can shoot the Milky Way and you get that first shot and you figured out how to shoot the Milky Way with the right exposure, you're just repeating that shot 12 times, but you're moving your camera incrementally by degrees for 12 shots, whatever you want to do, and adding one more shot at the beginning and the end because you're going to lose. So that picture was done in Lightroom and it was shot at 2:30 in the morning. Now, the other thing about this arch is it's more attainable in March, April, and May, because as we progress through the summer and the Earth rotates and the Milky Way becomes more horizontal, like straight up and down in the sky. So this is why we're out now at 5:30 in the morning in the freezing cold doing this. But we wanted to do it. It was the first time we'd ever tried it. So we've had a lot of fun with it. Okay. Okay, so beyond the Milky Way, we've just taken the time exposures, what we know about light, because once you start understanding the light of night photography, you can apply it in so many areas. So this is the refinery up at Nanticoke, the Esso refinery. And there's a funny story with that one, because I took this picture and I posted it, and my friend from Welland messaged me and he said, how did you get that picture? And I said, I don't know, we just stopped. And we actually had the security guard come right out and said, what are you guys doing? And he went, oh, excuse me, ladies. And then he says, oh, have a good night. And my friend said he almost got arrested for doing this. So the second picture, this is the loading dock that goes out into the lake. We shot this from the road and there was a ship there. So it's just very gritty, grungy. And I find HDR in Topaz really suits a lot of these industrial or night photographies. So this is steel wool burning. This is something that we've played around with. You want to do it someplace safe. This is at Morgan's Point again. It has a stone beach, a flat stone beach, because you don't want to set things on fire. And again, we took advantage of the moon and the clouds. We knew we weren't going there to shoot the Milky Way. We specifically went there to do this kind of photography. And again, it's just a timed exposure. Yeah. That's me standing in the middle spinning the steel wool. And my friend just runs the remote on my camera for me when we're doing it. So we experience a lot of what we call happy accidents. And fog has become my new best friend. So we were in Algonquin Park. It was middle to the end of October. And so we're dealing here with the air glow, the green, and we've got this fog across the bottom and dead trees and silhouettes. And the Milky Way was just spectacular. It was a new moon, just gorgeous. But we turned around and looked at the buildings, and there's this, it's like reminded me of an X-File type movie shot with the fog and the light coming through it. And again, that one both of these I did a bit of HDR on just to pop it out a bit, which is just a topaz filter that I like to use. So this is another happy accident. I showed you this fence rail before, and I accidentally turned my red light on for a second, and I got this. And it just made the photo pop because it draws your eyes to the center of the photo and it pulls your eyes right up to the Milky Way. So this was last night's adventure. So we went to shoot the Milky Way. I'm looking the other way, and some guy in a pickup truck comes down and drives his truck onto the beach, but leaves it running, and the lights are shining down into my shot. And I was really upset about it because we were trying to shoot the Milky Way, and I turned around and it was foggy and misty. And this is what I got. So he lit the waves for me along the shore. This is like a 15-second exposure. So we got the waves coming in. It lit the fog. We've got Culp lights. So this is from his car. These are from the car lights, the color. This is from these lights over here, which are probably halogen or LED lights. And these are incandescent lights down here. So these, like, sometimes you just have to turn around and look behind you because it's amazing what you're going to find. So I like to go to the same spots over and over. Like, people will go to a spot and say, oh, I didn't get a shot. Well, this was early. This was like February. We're out beginning of March. And you can just see there's a faint bit of the Milky Way, but we're not quite yet into the core being up. But I discovered a neat trick out at the Port Maitland Pier this year. There's a row of lights that runs the length of the pier, street lights from front to back. They turn them off from November to May. So I was out there like every other night because it was so different than what we try to do in the summer when the lights are all on, because there's still remnants of snow here. So I like to work a scene. So I work my way down the pier and I'm shooting all the way down to see what I can find. There's a couple guys here. There's 3 guys here. They actually stopped me afterwards and said, could you take our picture? And I have a picture of the 3 of them sitting up here. So this was, you can see there's no lights on. This is midnight. We're under a full moon. We've got beautiful clouds again. It's like the middle of the day. The textures, the patterns, it was just amazing. This is that same night looking up the river. It was freezing cold. We've got beautiful flat glassy ice in spots. Just, you can see the winds blowing. So we're getting the cloud. This is Inifos, the fertilizer factory. This is just some radiance of ice that you wouldn't see during the day, but look at the textures and the colors and the definition. It's just, you have to look. And I like to get down. I like to look for different things. So this is a really good example of perspective, because this how big is this lighthouse? But it looks like it's a tiny little thing. But we've got puddles, we've got reflected color. And here I was trying to get a picture of these lights that through the bench rails. And again, the beautiful clouds, and we've got the city lights up here. They're just lighting everything up underneath and just lighting all the ice, and all the lines are pulling you in to the center of the photo. And here's some more beautiful puddles up the side, flat, smooth ice, different factories along here, all adding to the light. And another one, this one I like because it just, everything just pulls you into the center to this light right here. You've got the lines coming down, you've got the water coming in from the sides. You've got the reflections on the, here, you get the textures. It's just, there's so much to see. So, and a tip too, if you think you've got a meteor in your photo, if it's a plane or a satellite, if you zoom in on it, it's going to be a dashed dotted line. And that's a good way to tell whether or not it's a meteor. You can see here, this one here's dotted all the way across. Because when you're doing a 10 or 15 second exposure, they're going to move through your picture. So this one I call as twilight turns to dusk or something. But so the sun was setting, but over here it was dark. And this was done with my wide angle lens. And this one I did add some HDR to it, but this turned out really good. But the stairs were amazing. Just, they became the focal point for the night there. And this is one that I've done from the back of the pier, which again, with the moon and the light and the snow and the ice, you can't do this in the summer. And you can't do this in the summer when the lights are all up and down the pier, but because there's no lights on the pier lighting it from behind, you've got a more even light. But just the patterns in everywhere that we go, it was just, yeah. So we moved on to Halloween and had some fun. We found a cemetery and we were getting the Milky Way up the top of the cemetery. And here I took it another level and I added some topaz, which kind of makes it look like it's got ghosts and ghouls floating through it. And then we decided to try ghosts. So this, we actually took turns. We had some fabric and we were doing a timed exposure here and just wandering the trails, and we were just kind of moving our arms, and the wind was helping. It was billowing this fabric out that we brought. And then you just, play around with it with topaz and make it this sketchy, creepy picture. And this, I love silhouettes, more silhouettes. So here's just the little rise with a tree and a few tombstones. So you can move what you learn from shooting the Milky Way and go and shoot beautiful night photography anywhere in the world. You got a tripod, you got your camera. You can play around with your exposures, just the reflections. Niagara Falls is a great place to go. This is a barn out by Nanacoke. So we've got Stelco over here that's lighting everything from this way. And because my camera's always taped and ready to go, my lens, we literally, Taryn and I were doing this. We literally got out of the car. We both set up our tripod, took a picture. We got the barn and we get the meteor. And it's just like, okay. Almost every night that I'm out, I see meteors. They're not specific showers, but there's always a meteor somewhere. It's a crapshoot trying to shoot a meteor. They're never where you want them to be. So this is fireworks. And again, I have a little technique I've evolved for this. I put it in bulb mode. And what I do is when one of the fireworks goes off, I don't just let the camera just film. I quickly cover the lens and block it. And then when the next one explodes, I lift the whatever I'm covering my lens with, and then I block it again. So you get more, you don't get the blown out highlights, and you get the colors and the definitions. If we ever have an event where we could go do fireworks, I'd be happy to share that with people, but none of that stuff is happening right now. And this is another one, right into the light, but playing with the shadows and the reflections, and it looks like a 1930s film noir creepy night. So there's just so much you can do with it. This is Dunville, and obviously, and the red lights just set this off. There was a little bit of moisture on the road. Threw some HDR on this in Topaz. Topaz does a great job with the HDR of popping architecture, structures. It's not really a good thing for people. So I also went and stood over here. I don't have that picture in here, and took a picture of Deb's Cuisine with these huts that she's put up. She's actually up for an Innovator of the Year award for these huts for outside dining because of COVID. Anyway, so she bought a picture that I did of just that, and then I donated this to the Haldeman Arts, whatever it is, they do auctions, like it promotes charity, and she bought that one too. So I have a wall in her restaurant with 2 of my photos on. So this is playing with the lights. So what you're seeing here is there's trucks driving across the bridge, or cars, and I waited. These were 8-second exposures. I've never seen the water this calm. It was a November night. Mary Jane was with me, and we stood and we waited, and we waited for the car to start, and then we started filming, and we got the complete reflection of the lights moving all the way across the river. And this is the final one. This is from Sir Sam something Park. Sorry, I'm not a Hamilton buff. Taryn took me there. Can't remember the name of it. But anyway, looking across to Toronto over the city. And I call this Out of the Dragon's Mouth because of the smoke billowing and all the lights. You can see here where the right aperture setting gives you these beautiful starbursts of lights.
And I think that's Sam Lawrence Park.
Thank you. I knew it was
Ex-Hamilton girl.
Yeah, there you go. It's up at the top of the mountain. It's beautiful there.
Yeah, it is. I have a few shots. I think that's one of the steel mills, is it not?
Yes, yes, it is. Yeah.
Actually, I think that's Stelco.
That's the Pasco.
That's DeFasco. It's not green enough for me. I couldn't tell. It's too dark.
All right, so I am done now. I'm welcome for questions. I'm going to stop sharing. Is that what I do, Tony?
You can leave that on if you want.
Okay.
It's up to you.
All right. So I'm welcome for any questions anybody has.
So we're now open for questions. Anybody wants to ask any?
Beautiful, Anne. Absolutely beautiful.
Thank
I don't
you.
have any questions, Anne, but man, I'm glad I moved back to Haldeman. I need to come shooting with you guys. This COVID thing needs to end.
It does. Yes, it does. Yeah.
And I have a question.
Yes.
I didn't really understand what you were saying about using gaffer's tape to secure the ring and to do this during the daytime before you go out at night. What are
Okay.
you focusing on during the daytime? It's going to be as far away as a star.
It doesn't have to be as far away as a star. Anything beyond 100 feet or so will get you to infinity on your camera.
So you go to manual focusing,
Yes.
and you focus on something that's more than 100 feet away,
Yes.
and then you use your gaffer's tape to secure the ring.
Yes.
I see.
And what I like about it too, with it being secured, is too, if I want to flip my camera from, straight on to vertical, I don't have to worry about the focus shifting. So yeah, and I would prefer that everybody learn how to do it out in the dark at night. It's kind of a cheater's way to do it during the day. So like if your camera has live view, you should be able to figure it out on how to focus at night. So, and the other, we've been out where it's been really dark and somebody's just gone off in the distance and stood with a light, like a flashlight or something. And we kind of use that as a starting point for people to focus on at night. So there's lots of different little tricks you can try. That's what I'm hoping we can have a workshop so we can kind of, work through some of this stuff for everybody. So.
Is the purpose of having it taped also, Ann, is that your lens is ready to go no matter what?
Yeah, that's what I said. Like, I never take my tape off my lenses because that's all I use my lenses for, my big lenses. Those wide angle lenses, it's just for my night stuff. So I have a bag from my night photography with all my stuff in it, and I'm just ready to go. So yeah, if that's what you're going to do with it, yeah, you could just leave it on. But you know, a lot of people use it for landscape. They're great landscape lenses, and
And a follow-up question is, again, if you were doing, as you say, the cheater's method of
Mhm.
focusing during the day,
Mhm.
could you use your autofocus
Yes,
to focus something that's a long ways away
yes,
and then just slide the button over to manual and tape it there?
yes, that works too. That's a good starting point. Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
I've done that too. Yeah.
Any other questions?
Yeah, a question about that last picture we're looking at right now, which is shows
Mhm.
Stelco plus Toronto.
Mhm.
What lens did you use for this?
This was my 14-24.
Huh.
I did crop it in a little bit, but yeah,
And is that several images merged together or just one image?
I'm a single image photographer. I don't, other than the panoramas, I'm pretty much straight one shot for everything I do. So
And I think you answered this in your presentation, but Kim Spur wrote, what do you do to avoid condensation on your sensor while going out on a cold winter night?
that's my dew heater. How do I get out of this? Let me go back. Okay. I found it wasn't such an issue. Can you see that? Are we still sharing that?
Yep.
Okay. So this is a little cuff, Velcro cuff that goes around the lens. And this is a little battery pack and it just plugs into it. So this is why I made these goofy things out of a balaclava from the dollar store. I cut it open and sewed a piece on so I could flip it up and get into it. And I put a little pocket in the front. I sewed it on so this battery pack sits in it, because otherwise it was banging all over the place. But they really work well. And we really use them more in the summertime for the dew. The dew is really a bigger issue than the cold in the winter. Because I find in the winter, we're not, like in the summer, we go out and we set up and we're out for hours shooting meteor showers. So like you're out there in under, you know, when the dew's, we're just soaked when we're done. So that's why I was saying garbage bags to put your stuff in, and towels, and like a hand towel if you don't have one of these. So before I made this thing, I would put the dew heater on, and then we would just throw a towel over the camera just to keep everything kind of dry. But they really do work really well. And these are like 25 bucks on Amazon, and you can pick the battery packs up anywhere too. Amazon has them. So you could also make one out of, if you can figure out some way to make a ring of fabric and put the hand warmers in them that we have, or you know, some way to attach them around them too, that will work too if you don't want to invest in one of these right away. So I've done that too when I first started, but as you get more serious about it, you up your game.
Anybody else got any other questions? Been some good questions. You got some good comments in the chat there, and the chat you can take a look at after.
Yeah, I haven't even looked at that. So yeah. Well, this was fun. You know, it's my passion. Once I got into doing this, I said to Tony, was like, oh my God, how long is this going to be? Because I just like, I didn't know where to stop. It's just, there's so much I love about the night. And I want to get everybody out there. I guess my main thing is, you go out to shoot the Milky Way, but the night is full of everything. Like just look around, like find stuff. Like it doesn't have to be about the Milky Way. Like go. I have more luck selling stuff I do in town, like commercial stuff, like pictures of people's businesses or downtown. Like I showed you the bridge, I showed you Deb's Cuisine. I've got another one I did a day picture of out by the pier. I've got three 32 by 16s hanging in the local real estate office on canvas that I did of local pictures, and they figured what better things to have on their wall than local pictures. And it seems like I find the business people seem to appreciate that stuff more. You know, most people, local people, like off of a Facebook page will say, oh, do you sell your pictures? And when I tell them how much, I never hear from them again, but I'm not going to chase them. Like I'm, you know, it's not a business, but I don't mind selling it if people want to do it. So, yeah. So it's just a passion for me, and I hope you guys can get out. Like, this COVID is scary as crap. You go out at night, there's nobody out. My husband freaks out. He says, you're going out to stand in the middle of the field. I said, there's nobody standing in the field next to me at 3:30 in the morning. Believe me, you know, they're all home in bed. So,
Well, hopefully we will be able to get out on June the 12th. If not, we'll probably take a look at another date to actually do this.
yeah, we may move it into July to the next new moon. That'll be the next good time to do it. So, and
Yeah,
if there's a lot of people and we have to split it up, I don't mind doing 2 nights. So, okay. If the COVID numbers are, we can only do so many people at a time, we can split it and do a couple of nights. So,
Yeah, so that's what we're looking at right now is because of the COVID rules, you're limited the number of people. We're trying to find shooting events that are outside where we can spread out and be safe. So,
and this is one of them that's so easy to do this because you can spread out. You're stationary. You get your spot. You stand there. You know, you're not intermingling. So yeah, it's a good thing. So
you're getting all kinds, just to let you know, so you're getting all kinds of great comments too. And Mary Jane just put down very inspiring, great photos, well done, excellent from a few other, sorry, somebody put something else in there. Great information, can't wait to try your suggestions. Thanks, Anne, for putting this together and sharing the love. So you can read those up there. So a lot of good comments. Are there any other questions before we call it an evening? This is being recorded, and I will be putting it up on our website that you can take a look at it again. I think we can put this into our YouTube channel.
okay, awesome. Well, I appreciate everybody coming, and as you can tell, I'm very passionate about it, and I hope you guys get out and give it a try.
Great job, Anne. Thank you very much for sharing.
Thank you.
Any other final questions?
Guess we're calling it a night. So
I think we're going to call it a night. I'm going to stop the recording here. Okay.